Hey everyone, it is Misty and welcome back to At Home. I am joined by Craig.
Hey y'all.
And we are in his sewing space here in Charleston. He invited me here and we set it all up for you, and now we're gonna make your very first quilt block.
Yeah, I'm a co-founder of Sewing Down South here in Charleston. We specialize in throw pillows, but I've really wanted to get into quilting for a long time. Misty, thank you for setting up my sewing space.
Of course.
New and improved, and I'm ready to tackle my first quilting project. So what are you gonna show me how to make today?
Okay, we're gonna make a simple Sawtooth star block. It's one of my favorites. I know that probably
Sounds
means
like a dinosaur.
It means nothing to you, but it's quick and easy. And so now that you have all the supplies you need here, we're gonna tackle it. You can put it into a quilt, of course, or you can make pillows, pot holders, baby quilts, table runners.
Gotcha.
Anything.
So it's a small building block of all of those projects.
Of all the projects, yes.
So with quilting, I did learn that you're supposed to pick up this presser foot.
Yes, you've got a 1/4 inch foot.
Okay, so I'm gonna switch that out right now.
Great.
And yeah, this will be my first quilting project.
Well, I am excited. I hope that you get hooked. I think it's a great one to start with. Quick and easy, and you learn lots of new little techniques that are great for quilting. These I actually cut off the bolts that you have on your shelf there. So these are 2 different Essex linens, which I love working with. They have kind of a nice texture to it. And then a pack of just white 10-inch squares. We call these layer cakes, but they're just pre-cut 10-inch squares.
I love all the fun names.
I know, and so this is kind of the foundation of our block. We're gonna begin with this pre-cut square, and we'll build from there.
All right.
And so we're gonna use our 10-inch square and our 2.5 by 15-inch ruler.
All right.
And so let's set this 10-inch square on our rotating mat. You're gonna trim off a 1/2 inch from 2 sides first.
All right, that's a 1/2 inch, correct?
Exactly.
All
Make a
right.
cut. Perfect. Slide that little piece out of the way, and now just spin that rotating mat once.
Like that?
Yep, and then go ahead and make a cut on the other side.
All right.
So now that you have your 9.5 inch square, you're gonna use the width of your ruler, the full 2.5 inches, lay it right on the edge of your square.
Okay.
And you're going to make a cut on all 4 sides, and just try not to move your pieces of fabric. Leave it right there on the mat and just rotate, and you're gonna cut once on each side.
I like to stand when I'm cutting.
I know, it is helpful to have that angle.
Okay.
So then now you're just gonna leave it exactly like it is, same thing, and you're just gonna keep spinning it and making that 2.5 inch cut on all 4 sides. And it's gonna
Because when I started my company, my perfectionism got in the way, and nothing was good enough. I was using my seam ripper constantly, and I just thought everything had to be perfect, and it wasn't until I brought in my partner where he was like, Craig, this is great. Like, you don't like...
It's part of the process.
Small imperfections are part of having homemade goods.
That's exactly right. And I always like to remind people that, you know, sewing should be fun. And if we're taking it too seriously, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah, and it's not the time to be critical of yourself. Just like find beauty in the small little mistakes.
Enjoy the process. And so then now what you have here, you can pull all your pieces apart.
Okay.
And so you have 4 2.5 inch squares.
Yep.
And then you have 4 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles.
Okay.
And so this is the foundation that you need to make this Sawtooth star block.
Okay.
And so from there, you just need to choose your accent fabrics, which that's what I got these Essex linens for.
Okay.
And we're going to cut 2.5 inch strips of these that we're gonna subcut into 2.5 inch squares. I can do that over here if you'd like.
Great.
Okay.
Now, if someone wants to buy this rotating cutting mat, where can they find that?
We have that at Missouri Star.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna lay this again like we did before, right on the edge. I have this folded in half and in half again, and as long as your selvage is nice and straight on that fold, you shouldn't have any weird little, you know, angles when you cut. So that's what you wanna watch for, is just keep everything nice and straight. So I'm gonna make a cut there.
Strong and authoritative, very decisive.
Thank you. And then we'll cut off our selvage.
Okay.
And we can just toss that for now. And for our centers, we are just going to need 4 of this lighter color. And so since I have it stacked, that's all we need. Of course, if you're making a whole quilt, you'll just keep cutting.
Gotcha.
And need more. And so to begin with, we're gonna grab that 4.5 inch square in the middle.
Yep.
The big one. And we are going to take these light colors And we are going to put them on opposite sides first, like this. And we're gonna sew point to point. And so we will just draw a line here for you, and this will be your stitch line. And so in quilting, this is often referred to as snowballing.
Okay.
And so what that means is you're kind of...
The terms just continue to expand.
I know. You're gonna kind of make the block look round. That's why they call it that. And so I'm just gonna lay my ruler here, and we're gonna mark this point to point on the back of this fabric. When you're using solids, there's not often a right or wrong side, and so you don't have to worry about it. But if you're using print fabrics, you would put the print side down, and you'd be marking the wrong side. And so now we're gonna sew your needle right on that line that we marked, and so I'll let you stitch both of those.
All right.
And I'll go ahead and mark these while you work on that.
So there's no like reverse stitching or double stitching or anything with these?
No, because with quilting, that's a great question. Often your seam lines that you're taking are caught in another seam, which locks them in place.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you weren't going to have that, you would want to back stitch.
Okay. So you really don't have to overthink like the edges and stuff, because with pillows, you know, you're gonna lock in your corners and stuff so they don't burst.
Exactly. So in some ways, quilting is so much simpler. Look at that, you did great.
Okay.
Looks wonderful. And so now we're gonna cut this off and leave our 1/4 inch seam. And so that's the standard seam in quilting, is a 1/4 inch. And so I'm gonna lay my ruler on your stitch line and make sure I have a 1/4 inch of overhang. And then I'm just gonna trim off this extra. And this would just go in your scrap bin or the trash. And then if you will give this a press, we'll just fold those back, and then we can add these last two
Does it matter where which side the seams are on?
I like to just kind of roll them back out of the way so that they don't show on the white. I try and press to the dark side.
First time using my new iron.
Yeah.
Wow, that makes it really easy.
That looks wonderful. And so you can see we're gonna kind of mimic the same thing that we did before by adding our next 2 squares, and it's gonna make a smaller square in the middle by adding these on the outside. And so just like before, we can take this to the machine and we can stitch it down.
Okay, wow. And I love that it doesn't have to be perfect. It looks fine. Like you don't have to pin all these small places. Like
no, and if it helps you, you can always pin. But I think when you're working with these small pieces, it's a lot more manageable than people think. Just take your time.
Okay.
Beautiful.
This is fun.
So just like before, we're gonna trim those off, leaving that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Spin that around. And then you can press that back.
Okay. It's very therapeutic. Like,
I think so too.
all of the actions involved. It's just like, and like I can just sit in my little swivel
and
chair.
Just work. We're gonna add flying geese to make our star legs. And so just like before, I am going to draw a line. You can see that, right? Okay. And so our first one, you're gonna stitch right on that line.
Okay.
And you'll find in quilting that a lot of these techniques, once you learn them, just tiny little changes give you a different result. So like here, same idea as before, but you're adding these to a rectangle instead of a square. All right, and so now we're gonna trim off this, leaving our 1/4 inch seam again.
Having the right accessories really.
It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And so if you wanna roll that back and press it, then we'll add one more square. Beautiful. We're gonna add our 2.5 inch square again. And the thing that you're looking for when you're making star blocks is you want it to overlap, because this is gonna leave us what we call our seam allowance in quilting. And so once this folds back, you should still have a 1/4 inch left over that's going to keep your points, and you know, it's just a good little tip to watch for. And so you're just gonna stitch point to point.
Okay. Straight line, Craig.
Straight line.
All these years have come down. Well, and you have your guides on the machine too, which is nice.
Exactly. All right, so we will trim this off. And then once you press this back, This is what we call a flying geese unit in quilting.
Cool.
And we're gonna use 4 of these. We're gonna make it the exact same way to make our star block. So we'll just keep working on that.
So the point comes from right there, not...
Exactly.
Flying geese. I'm gonna have to learn all the terms.
It kind of has its own vocabulary for sure. So then if you want to just sit that in there, we're actually gonna put the dark side in, and you can kind of see how your star will start to take shape if we add these all the way around it. So we're just gonna repeat that 3 more times.
All right.
And so this is actually a great opportunity to do something we call chain piecing.
Okay.
Where you can just start going point to point, and you did great without me marking, so I'm gonna trust that you're good to go.
Okay, point to point this way, not this
Either way, as long as you're
matter?
consistent.
Okay.
Yep. And now don't cut your thread. You can feed this one in right behind it.
Oh, smart. Oh, that saves time, doesn't it?
It really does.
Neat. Look at that. I feel like a quilter.
You are a quilter.
All right, it's coming together.
There you go. Look at your sawtooth star.
Okay, so the flying geese are done. Wait, what was it called?
Yeah, flying geese, you got it.
Flying geese. All right, flying geese, 4 flying geese. What was this one?
It's kind of like a square and a square is what it's referred to. And these are just your corner blocks. You're not gonna do anything to them for this particular block.
Okay.
And so now we're just gonna sew this together in rows. And so I like to just kind of fold these over, just like so. And if you wanna pin them in place, you obviously can. But we're just gonna sew down this one side.
Oh, wow, okay.
And start putting our block together. And I would start at the top, and then we'll just add one after the other. You can chain piece just like you did with your flying geese.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And this is where that 1/4 inch foot comes in handy, because you want the edge of your fabric to line up right with the edge of that foot.
Gotcha. All right. Oh, that's really convenient, isn't it?
Yeah. Like you said, having all those tools really does make a difference. Beautiful. Sometimes when you snowball, they get a little wonky. What do you think?
I think it's a little wonky.
All right, let's give it a trim.
Okay. So what's the important thing to line up? Is that the middle, the white to the point to point?
These points here in the center are kind of what you're looking to have meet. And so
the white part.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we will just trim this up to 4.5 inches. So if you want to grab the 5 by 15 that's hanging over there.
Oh yes, my ruler board.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, so I'm just gonna lay this on here and make sure that I can get a nice 4.5 inch square. So I'm measuring down and over, and I'll just trim off this little bit that's hanging over for you, and it'll make it way easier. And then we can rotate this, put it right on that 4.5 inch line.
And so if I want to learn more about this stuff, I can watch your videos.
Of course, we have so many tutorials. And so hopefully once you learn some of these techniques, you'll be excited.
I mean, that's how I learned to further my sewing was YouTube videos.
Right. Yeah.
And the more, like, I'm a visual learner, so I could read it, it wouldn't make sense. I was like, I just want to see someone do it just one time.
Well, we have hundreds of them for
okay.
you to watch now, so you will be truly
Skills
set.
too, like not,
yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so now these are trimmed up, and we'll just fold this over. If you wanted to put a pin there to line up the middle, you could, but I am of the belief that it's just all about the journey.
I do? Okay, I am too, but I want to see, are you a clip or a pin person?
So in this case, I would probably pin it just because I think it will really hold it in place. So I like to kind of fold back and match up those points and just pin that once.
Oh, perfect.
And then that way, as this is under the machine, you can just pull this out of the way.
Okay.
And so you'll start with that lined up.
All right.
But it just keeps it until you're really close. Doing great.
Thank you, you're a good teacher.
Thanks. Hopefully after all these years, I would hope so.
How many people do you think you've taught how to quilt?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. That's a great question. It's hard to know with
I bet it would make you happy if you knew.
You can leave them together. So we call this kind of like thread pins, so to speak. And so this is keeping your block, like if you flip it open, it's actually keeping it in order. And so instead of having to pin it, you can just keep it together until the end. And so then now we can just lay this over and like that. And so you're gonna add one to each of those, and then you'll have all three of your rows for your block together.
Okay.
And if it's easier to flip it over too, I can help you keep it right. Sometimes having the smaller piece of fabric on top is easier for me.
Okay. Visually, just to keep it
Yeah.
together. Okay, there's that one.
And so then that needs to flip, and we'll add. You just want to make sure that you're matching.
The points.
Well, the print to the print, right?
Okay.
And you're going to match that point in the middle. So if you wanted to pin, you could. Otherwise, just, match it up with your fingers. My whole point is I don't want you to stress too much about it. It should be fun.
Right, and I think that's good for me to just like not hyper focus on those small things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, point to point is like that. Well, I'm excited to join the quilting world.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know my mom would absolutely love it if I made a quilt for her bed. Or a cat. I mean, she would keep it forever.
Yeah, it would be so special.
Can I do that?
Absolutely.
Easier to manage.
And so on those, I like to roll the seams kind of out. And then I always flip it over and check to make sure I don't have any of those little pleats like we got in the center, which it looks great, I think.
But I'm just glad to have started again. Like I said, I got so into the business side of things and selling our creations, which was really fun
Yeah, of
and
course.
an awesome goal. But then, life gets stressful and you go through stuff and you're like, hey, why not go back to the reason why you started sewing in the first place, which was as an escape and
Yeah, creative therapy.
creative therapy. I like that.
It's nice to have a hobby that's also productive in the long run. You get this beautiful thing that you've made.
Right, there's something to show from it.
Yeah. And so now you're just going to fold over one of those smaller pieces onto your middle to assemble your block. And we'll add one side and then the other. And so when I mention nesting seams, let me give you just a little tip there first. So we press these in opposite directions here, and you can kind of see how they're going opposite ways.
Yeah.
And so you really want those to kind of lock in place, and that's going to give you a really clean seam when they meet. And so that's another place if you wanted to put a clip or a pin, you absolutely could.
Okay.
And so let's do that. So we'll add one there, and then same thing on this side. We're going to come back and make sure that those are going to nest in place. And these are matching up great, which means your 1/4 inch seam is
I think you
wonderful.
You were the seam cutter, so
Yeah. And so then, yeah, you can just stitch your...
Of course, the part that you did looks good.
No, you've sewn all this. It looks amazing. And so just stitch right down that side.
No, I mean, if you make sure to use the tools and measure.
Yeah, it really does make a huge difference for you and having a successful time sewing.
Somehow got turned and went sideways a little bit, but it's the first one, so it's just got character. Yeah, see? I don't know what I did.
Oh, yeah.
It got,
It's okay.
like, punched a little
Let's see
bit.
how it looks when we open it up. I don't know that anybody's even going to be able to tell.
Okay,
It
see?
looks great. Super forgiving. And so now we're just going to add that other side.
That's the word. It is forgiving.
And watch for those little places where your seams are going to nest, and you can put your clips in.
Okay, one seam one way. You can see it if I did it right.
All right. There we go. This final seam and press, and we'll be all done.
Okay.
All right, let's see how it turned out.
Judgment time. Hey, not bad.
Craig, that looks great.
Not bad at
Look
all.
at you.
How much forgiveness do you have to straighten up the seams?
Well, so typically, like you might want to fix this one.
Yeah.
Especially if you were going to set it with another block, because
Gotcha.
that 1/4 inch is kind of your magic. Otherwise, you might lose this point when you set your blocks together.
Gotcha.
Since you're framing it though, you can trim it all the way
That's
to those
okay.
points.
Yeah, you know what this will help me do is slow down too.
Yes.
I mean, I spent some time living down in the islands, and what it did was teach you to slow down. We're in such a hurry sometimes here, and
Yeah, we can always be in a rush, and sometimes it's not for the better.
no, like if the project requires you to slow down,
Exactly.
and it's all fun.
part of learning is failing and trying again.
Yeah.
And so giving yourself the grace to do that
That's a great point.
is a really beautiful thing. I hope you're excited. You did an incredible job.
I am. And but me smiling now is why I love sewing.
Yeah.
And because you do accomplish something. And it's so much today, like you're stressing all the time about like, am I doing enough? Or am I checking off like the boxes on my list?
Yeah.
And this is a good way to do something you enjoy, but still get this satisfaction of completion.
Absolutely. And, hanging this on your wall, one, it's a good reminder of where you've come from, where you're headed, and, all the possibilities that are still ahead.
And be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I try to teach people, to be kind to themselves.
Yeah.
And be like, no, look, like, this is great. Something to be proud of. Like doing a project in school and you used to take home to your parents,
I love it. It looks so good.
Well, thanks. I'm going to put it on the wall.
Let's hang it up.
It's really grounding too, like if you're trying to figure stuff out, you're like, hey, at least I've got this figured out.
Yeah. Beautiful. Look at that. Well, you're a quilter, Craig.
Wow. My very first quilting block.
Oh, you did so good.
Thank you. You're a great teacher.
Welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I loved framing my first quilt block, but now I really want to jazz up my clothes and say very proudly out in public, I know how to sew, I know how to quilt.
Yeah, I've made this, right? There's something special about that. So I think we can definitely do it. I mean, I'm happy to stick around. Charleston's not a bad place to hang out. And so if you want to, I'll teach you how.
Yeah, I want people to ask me about my clothes and be like, actually, I made that. And I think that the crafting can become addictive and we'll get more people sewing.
Perfect. Well, let's do it. All right. So tune in next episode and I'm going to take Craig back to his roots and we're going to embellish some Sewing Down South shirts.